Today I'm joined by Frances from County Kerry. Frances is one of our clients, and Frances has availed of our service now for more than a year and a half. Hello, Frances.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for joining me. So, Frances, what led you in the first place to our service?
My aunt, she lives on her own and probably has for 40 years. And we noticed that she was needing a lot of guidance in, the kitchen and all of that. And I asked a public health nurse to visit her. And the public health nurse had tried before, but my aunt had told them she was fine and turned them away. And because she's an educated person, they assumed that she was okay. But in fact, we knew deep down that she wasn't managing the house as well as she used to. And then she got sick and she went into a hospital. And because of vomiting norovirus and then the coronavirus 19, she was transferred out of that hospital. She was negative for coronavirus and therefore was transferred to a private hospital. And so therefore two doctors had seen her, but one in the public and one in the private, and they both agreed that she had dementia. And they then discharged her to a district hospital with a view to a nursing home. But a nursing home wasn't really a good option because my aunt has a dog and a lovely garden and a lovely home. And we wanted to keep her in her own home. And also at the time, the coronavirus was rampant in the nursing homes. So thankfully, the public health nurse who I had met in February with my aunt suggested affordable live-in home care. It sounded ideal in that a carer would live and stay overnight. My aunt doesn't require work overnight, but we needed that security of knowing that somebody was in the house with her at night. And also, all she truly needed was somebody to get her lunch and her dinner, because she can do breakfast herself, because that involves like kettle and toaster, but she wouldn't be good with the frying pan anymore, and she would forget to turn off the cooker at the hob. So we just turn off the cooker on the fuse box. It's a bit of work having a new person in the house, especially when the house has fallen, asunder over the previous 2 or 3 years. So we had to replace a lot of the white goods and make sure we had Wi-Fi and that the phones were working and that the bedroom was suitable. And my aunt's brother visits from time to time, and he might stay 3 or 4 weeks when he comes. So we had to make sure we had the extra space. But this was good for helping the carer when her brother was down. There's been a lot of difficulties in the beginning because my aunt would be very resistant to people living in the house with her other than family. Always in the first week that the carer arrives, she calls the guards because an intruder is in the house. And the Gardaí have been absolutely wonderful. They've come to the house 3 times over the year and a half, and they have explained to my aunt that everything's okay. They've checked all the bedrooms, they've spoken to the carer and put her mind at rest, and then sit down with a cup of tea with my aunt, and everything settles down and she goes to bed again. Of course, this is frightening for the carers, so they do need to have training and support from the agency, which they get on dementia. And we're lucky that the public health nurse assigned a care assistant to come in once a day for 45 minutes, and she helps the carer settle in. And she also helps the carer with certain jobs that need to be done in the house. And because the care assistant from the public health nurse's place is local, she'd have a Kerry accent and probably knows a lot about the shops and in our local town, and all of that helps my aunt settle and accept the carer. She wouldn't be grateful to them because she doesn't realize that they're doing the shopping, as she doesn't accept that she needs help, but we're very grateful to the carer. And I think if the family shows gratitude, and if the location is nice, and if you try and make the house as homely as possible for the carer. So it takes a while to work out a timetable that works for the carer as well. So now we know exactly what hours. My aunt has a dog, and making sure the dog gets walked twice a day is a great help. and it keeps the house clean if the dog is taken out twice a day. And the carers have all loved having a dog as well, so that helps. My advice to families would be, particularly where a carer, requires a lot of patience to deal with somebody with dementia, that they give the carer their designated breaks, that they need a lot of support from the family. My sister lives locally, and herself and her husband would be up almost every second day helping the carer as well, just to help the elderly person accept the carer, but also with the difficulties a carer from a different country might have dealing with our different systems, like putting out the bins and all of that.
And Frances, so what differences have you seen in your relative's life and in your own life since the live-in carer has been there?
So it's a lot more structured. When the live-in carer comes initially, you resist putting structure on the life of your elderly relative, but it's important to have a structured timetable for the carer, and also for me and my relatives to know when to come and do our 24 hours or our 48 hours, to give the carer a break every weekend. So that requires structure, but actually the elderly person probably needs a lot of structure, because every day is running into the other and they're becoming muddled. So it's actually very nice for them to have structure on their day, particularly with the public health nurse's assistant coming in at a fixed time every day, and the carer doing the lunch and the dinner at a fixed time every day. That helps, I think, orientate a person with dementia. So it has made a big difference. It gives us great sense of peace that we know that the carer is staying overnight. If there truly was an intruder in the house, she would obviously ring the Gardaí. She's there to check if there's any, plugs left on near fires, or turn the fuse off at the cooker is the most important thing in this house, because my aunt likes to be a host and to cook dinners, and she's not able anymore. It's also nice to know that your relative is getting healthy food in fresh every day, and that it's being cooked and prepared, and it makes it very homely that people are cooking dinners in the house. And I suppose it's nice for her to have company, although my aunt would prefer to be left alone a lot of the time. So we've made sure that the carer got the bigger bedroom, so that she has plenty of room, so that she can use that bedroom as a place to get away from my aunt, who likes to listen to TV and it's very loud. And, the carer needs time on their own, as does my aunt. So the carer only works the 7 hours a day and then stays overnight. So I think we have an easy position in that my aunt's health is good, but her dementia is getting worse. She can be left for times on her own, as long as the house is left safe, and as long as she's been fed, and therefore won't look to cook a meal.
What advice would you give to a family right now that could be struggling with the care needs of an elderly relative?
I think it's very important for family members to get a break and to have structure. And I think the only way to get it is to have a timetable and get as many family members involved. And at the end of the day, the backbone of your care plan for your elderly person needs to be, I think, a carer that you pay, and they do fixed hours for you and stay overnight, and then you do their breaks. They're 24 hours one weekend, they're 48 hours the following weekend. And then you have the patience to do it, because as we all know, elderly people, they do things in a much slower pace. When you're rushing with your own job and your own younger family, you could be sandwiched between your younger family and your elderly relative, and you do need time to de-stress. And I think it's an ideal scenario. And of course, an accountant's help is great, because obviously the carer must be paid, and you need obviously funds to do that. And if the elderly person has funds of their own, with the help of a solicitor, as in my aunt's case, you might have to make them a ward of court to get the payments through. And in the meantime, the family pays and keeps all the receipts and the pay slips. And of course, you can get tax deduction on it, which is you can go back 4 years, I think, and get your tax reduced with the HK1 form, I think it is. We haven't done that because we're doing the ward of court instead. So it is complicated in the beginning, but it falls into place with the help of an accountant. And I find the accountants are brilliant at figuring out holiday pay. And, we're lucky in that my aunt has a brother in Dublin who will come down and cover the holidays of the carer. So she does get her week off every 12 weeks. Which is essential because they do need their breaks. And I think a carer, if the location is nice and if the family are grateful and if their hours are manageable, I think they stay as long as possible. But they do have to understand dementia because they won't get the gratitude of the elderly person. The elderly person will forget they're there. But I'm sure there are many elderly people who don't have dementia who'd be very grateful and would love the company. So we've managed to avoid nursing home. But I think if an elderly person becomes unsafe in their own home, well, then, you have to make a decision to go with nursing home because the carer would find that very difficult to be watching the elderly person all the time in case, of a fire or anything like that, wandering off. Or we're lucky that hasn't, that's not an issue at the moment.
Frances, you mentioned close to the beginning of our conversation that your relative did strongly resist the arrival of the carer. What advice would you give to a family that would have an elderly relative that didn't want to have a live-in carer in the home? What advice would you give to a family in those circumstances?
So it's difficult. We were lucky in that my aunt was out of the house and we put the carer in while she was in hospital and she came home to it. But we did warn her beforehand, but she had forgotten. So, I mean, she did get an umbrella to the poor carer and she did call the guards. But eventually it settled down and we rang you, Tom, at the time, and your advice was that the family would stay. So a member of the family stayed for the first week and it helped the carer settle in. When we had changeover then to our second carer, that we did an overlap of a few days between the carer who had eventually been accepted and the new carer, and that helped. And family were able to predict what was going to go wrong the second time because we had been through it before. So, taking a picture of the carer with the elderly person and putting it up on the walls can help them accept the person. And also when I'm helping my aunt and driving her around for trips out on Saturdays or Sundays, I sometimes would offer to the carer to come with us to explore the county, and that helps my aunt accept the carer because she sees that I accept the carer. And when we're having meals, even though the carer is off duty, we always invite her to join us at the table. And all of that, I think, helps my aunt accept the carer because she sees that family does.
Thank you so much for talking to me today and explaining about your experiences of having a live-in care. And I'm sure a lot of families will benefit a lot from listening to you, and that, it will give them the reassurance that taking the step of hiring a live-in care is a good solution.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a very good solution. Eventually, I'm sure many elderly people have to go to nursing homes for nursing reasons and for security reasons. But it is lovely if they can stay in their own home a little bit longer where they are king of the castle, because they feel, I'm sure, very secure and their self-esteem is good and they're more confident in their own homes where their surroundings are familiar to them and where they could still have their pet and their nice gardens and pride in their own home. Eventually, I'm sure things will change, but it has worked quite smoothly for us once we get over the hump of the first week and the carer settles in and the elderly person accepts them. I would definitely recommend affordable live-in home care, and I think it's a solution that has worked very well for us.
Thank you very much, Frances, for your time. And I hope the current placement will work out very well.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Thank you, Frances.
Okay, Tom.